Welcome to Ignite Your Light with Zara Black, where I engage conscious entrepreneurs, movement builders, change makers, people living in their purpose and making an impact, creating new paradigms in the self-healing space. Today, I have with me my guest, Emma Marshall from Movement is Medicine. Emma is a TEDx speaker who has been featured on This Morning, Happy Place, the BBC, Channel 4 for her work with Movement is Medicine. Movement is Medicine combines neuroscience with dance and music to help educate people on the mind and body connection in their everyday lives. Movement is Medicine was birthed by Emma's personal health journey from a mystery illness, which caused her to do a lot of self-study, self-discovery, self-belief to make a full recovery. The Movement is Medicine method has helped thousands of people all over the world to recover and deal with stress, trauma, physical and mental health. Emma has over 10 years in the music industry within rave and dance music culture. Welcome to Ignite Your Light, Emma Marshall.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I've been looking online about like music as like a healing method, that sort of thing. And, you know, what I found is that there's a lot of research that shows that music can not only help with obesity and loneliness, mental health, that sort of thing. So could you just tell us, like, you know, how does music help us if you're like depressed or like you've got a physical illness or something like that? How does music help? Is it just like, you know, listening to it will just automatically get your mood better? How does it work?
So there's different elements to music, really. It depends as well, like who you are as a person. But the one thing that's universal is that music makes us feel something. Doesn't matter what genre that is, it will make you feel something. So for example, you might have a playlist where you're feeling really like emotional and sad, and you're like, I'm gonna go to that playlist, and you will start crying because they make you feel what you need to feel and have that emotional release. And then of course we've got tunes that take us back into nostalgic phases of life. So if we're spiraling and we're feeling anxious and we're not present, listening to a song that is going to be able to be nostalgic to you is going to take you back to a happier time. Like that immediately will put a kind of blocker on those pathways. You know, those pathways are exacerbated by the present moment in some way, shape or form. And then we go into the future and we start worrying. So we can play music for so many different elements of like mental health in particular, but also my whole body of work is so centered around the body. So I essentially curate music in the method and under the brand that is music that makes you want to move. That's our tagline. So any music that we work with, it has a percussion. And the reason that it has a percussion is because it doesn't matter, again, who you are. If you the amount of people are like, I can't dance. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. I can't dance, but I can move. Like, you put me in a dance class, I'm the worst person in there because I can't be told how to move to music. But I can move to music because I know how to catch the rhythm and I know how to catch the beat, because the drum guides your body. And it's the thinking mind that doesn't allow us to connect to the music. The thinking mind is always going somewhere else, whereas the body isn't. The body is actually always present. So when we allow the body to just connect to the music, that is how we are able to complete a stress cycle, to release stress. And that for me is like the biggest component of this work. It's like getting people to understand that it's the rhythm that they're looking for, so that they can really come back into their natural state of being.
So it's not necessarily the choreography and trying to make it look all cute and like I can dance and that sort of thing. You're just allowing the body to just do what it will and feel that rhythm. And you mentioned that you make music.
So we curate music. So like biggest part of the brand for me is the music side of it. Like coming and working in music for 10 years. The reason I started working in music was because I was just a raver. I loved going out and found, you know, my love on the dance floor, drum and bass, jungle, garage, grime, funky, house, loads of different types of house. Like that was my thing. So what I wanted to kind of replicate was the same kind of experiences that we used to have back then, but in a healthier way and to the same tunes. Like, I don't think that just because you're on a healing journey, you have to give up, you know, oh, I don't listen to this music anymore and I don't do this anymore.
Secular music.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to pop music. It's not in my interest at all. Whereas I think that there's so much beauty in certain genres, especially from like the electronic space, that just make you want to move. It's kind of that simple, and everyone's obviously got their preferences, but I do think there is like a universal thing where you can play a tune to somebody and they will start to tap their feet or tap their hands because they're connecting to the rhythm. It's that simple. We don't have to then go and be like, let's do like a 16 thing choreography thing. No.
Oh, that's really interesting. So take us back to what started all of this. Movement is medicine. Okay, so you had a personal health journey, is that right? Take us back to that point of where you had the illness. You know, what was it, and how you sort of birthed movement is medicine to.
So I'm gonna do like very long story short. Otherwise we'd be here for like 2 hours. But yeah, very long story short. I got really burnt out in like 2014. I was doing so many different jobs, like just started really full time, like cementing myself in the music industry. Everything was going from like here to 100 really quickly. And I kept saying yes to kind of every opportunity. And you're young, you just think nothing of it.
I can do this.
Totally. Like, said yes to literally everything. And it just was way too much. And I'd never heard of burnout, didn't know what it was. But started to get all the symptoms. Now I know because of all the research I've done what burnout is, got all the symptoms of burnout. Went to the doctors, they were like, oh, we don't know, you're just probably stressed or whatever, depressed, all the usual kind of nonsense that they say when they don't know. And then I was like, right, okay. And a few months later, I started on this like kind of cascade of like really serious health things that put me in and out of hospital. So the first one was I had an issue with my kidneys. And then after that, I broke my arm after I got tripped over in the street. And then I got diagnosed with this like nervous system disease, which is like, it's this syndrome that they don't really know why it happens, but it happens usually like after trauma. It's a whole thing because obviously falling and breaking your arm is a trauma to the body. And so there's like different reasons and theories and that kind of thing, but no one could give me a straight answer. So this went on and on and on, and I couldn't move like the left side of my body. I was really, really in pain. Like I couldn't eat, sleep, nothing. I had to move back to my mum's. I couldn't look after myself. And then after that, like a few months later, I had to have my appendix out. So it was kind of like these big things, one after the other, in like a really short space of time. And I think that this is the thing as well. Like now I understand trauma. Like if you're not giving yourself a certain amount of time to recover, especially when you've had like a physical injury, you're going to perpetuate that trauma. And because I didn't really have any recovery period from like the kidneys through to the arm thing, through to the appendix, it was just literally like one big 6-month kind of physical attack basically. So I came out the back of that. And I was a mess. I was just an absolute mess, mentally, like not okay, like physically really not okay. But no one around me was able to sort of give me the right support, because even back then, this is like 2015, mental health wasn't a thing.
Yeah, that's quite stressful.
It was hugely stressful for mind and body. Like obviously as well, I've got a job. I've got a life, I've got, you know, these things, and it just all went completely upside down. So that's when I started to look into like holistic, like everything. So I looked into nutrition, I looked into herbs, I gave up drinking alcohol. Like I just completely changed my entire lifestyle. And I definitely found some level of change, but at the same time, I hadn't got to like the nervous system stress trauma piece yet. So I just would always say to people, I'm like, I just feel like I've never really recovered from it.
So what part of you would you say did sort of heal from doing that holistic, stopping drinking, just taking the herbs, that sort of thing?
I think just on a general level of finding a bit more like routine. Like as I said before, I was doing all these different jobs. Like I changed so many aspects of my life to create a better suited lifestyle in general across the board, focus a lot more on like, sleep, made changes in regards to like moving into a different flat. Like there were just certain things that I did to accommodate how I was feeling. So I'm not having to get up at the crack of dawn because I don't live near my work anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like even just that kind of small little things, changing the way that I was living was really important to me. And so I would just say that I just kind of, I definitely would say that I got about 90% back to okay and functioning well and whatever. But I would say, that 10% was, I was just like, I haven't fully got back to myself. And I didn't really know what was missing, but I would still have like anxiety a lot. Like anxiety is like my default. And I say this on every single kind of platform I speak on. I don't tend to get depressed as like a general thing. Like I'll have circumstantial depression, you know, if somebody passes or I'm heartbroken, like those kind of things can send you into a depressive state. But I wouldn't say that I have depression. I get anxious. I get so anxious that I get completely paralyzed by the anxiety and overwhelmed. So that was still happening. And so I started seeing this like Jamaican healer where I'd go and do like sort of counselling, and then she'd do kind of energy work. And I used to go see this guy in Islington who used to do different types of body work, basically. Like he worked with like reflexology and like other kind of pressure points and that kind of stuff. And so I was just doing all this stuff for my physical body, trying to figure out like how to overcome the previous kind of 2 years. And so that was a consistency thing that was necessary to go on that consistent journey, where on a Friday night I wouldn't go out anymore and I wouldn't take jobs on a Friday night, whereas before I would have said yes to everything, so that Saturday I could have my day of just like going to these healers. Like that was something I did for a year. So I was really, really strict with it. And then in 2018 I ended up getting pregnant. And it was just like wrong person. Like we did not know each other very well. We just met. Contraception had failed. And I decided to terminate, which was such a difficult decision. There was like so much of me that didn't want to do it. But I also was like, I don't want to bring a child into the world like this. Like I don't even know this guy. Not really. And so, I decided to terminate. And unfortunately, it went wrong. And I talk about this much more openly now on these kind of platforms, because the amount of women that I have this conversation with who say, oh my God, me too.
Me too.
Me too is unbelievable. So whether or not you agree with abortion, it's not really the conversation.
It's happening.
The conversation is it's happening and they're doing it wrong. So we're leaving women deeply traumatized by these experiences that can then send people into like extreme health situations, which is exactly what happened to me. So obviously I hadn't fully recovered from this trauma from a few years previous. I then was put into this situation, and what ended up happening was I decided to opt for the surgical abortion because then I couldn't remember it and it would just be over and done with. Obviously they did it wrong. I ended up bleeding out a few days later in like a cafe. I went into A&E, saw the resident who was there. She basically said, oh, this is fine, don't worry about it. You're just kind of being anxious about it. It's completely normal. And I was like, okay, well, again, you're a doctor, so I believe what you're saying. I went away, and 2 days later, I got a phone call from the hospital being like, we've made a mistake, you need to come back. And I was like, well, what kind of mistake could you have made? And they were like, you need to come back. So went back in and had like some very horrible internal exams, and they realised that they'd left the fetus inside. So then they were like, we're concerned that you're going to go into septic shock. So you need to start taking all this medication, and we need to do another abortion on you basically right now. And I was like, you're not touching me. Like, there's no way. I was like, there's always a choice. So you need to tell me what my options are. And at that moment in time, I feel like that was the right decision for me, because I just had lost all faith in kind of doctors and the medical thing at this point, because the previous years, that had all been really, really difficult. This situation was really, really difficult, and I was just traumatized.
You had one job.
So, they put me on this like serious medication. I carried on bleeding for probably about 3 months, but they basically were like, you know, you need to basically keep doing pregnancy tests, because if it comes back as pregnant within the space of like 3 weeks, you need to come back. Then there is no choice then, basically. And my body did take care of it. Mother Nature did her thing. But I was traumatized at this point, so traumatized that I couldn't even.
Goodness.
Yeah, I couldn't even function. Like, I went into a sexual health clinic that was like near to me, because I was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm talking to these like counsellors that they give you. They're just useless. And I also didn't really have any support, because the thing is, he wasn't involved. The kind of consensus with abortion is like, well, it was your choice. And then on top of that, whenever I did speak to people go, oh yeah, but people have abortions all the time, it's fine. I'm like, you're not getting it. Like, this was really not good.
And
I'm feeling it's still not good.
Might still be in there. Part of it.
It's still affecting me physically. And I went and saw this doctor, and she listened to me, and she was like, you've got PTSD. Like, you have got absolute classic PTSD, so you need to start seeing a trauma therapist like now. And she kind of checked my body, and she was just like, you're not well. Like, it's not, you're physically obviously having some sort of kind of reaction to this situation. But I just got worse and worse and worse physically. I started trauma therapy. He was great, but also was like, I just don't know why you're getting sicker, like physically. He was like, I can tell you're getting worse every single session we have. Mentally, you're hyper aware of everything. You understand everything. You can logically, understand what's happened. You're dealing with your emotions, but physically you're getting sick, and I can't help you.
It's still there.
It's still there. So I went into functional medicine at this point. Functional medicine are interesting because they're kind of the next go-to after Western, because they're still doctors. So you're like, okay, well, you're still a doctor. But I just think they're obsessed with like toxins and like Lyme disease, and everyone's got Lyme disease and everyone's got mold. And that's kind of what they did to me. It was like, this is what we think you've got. And it was just this kind of very scary, pivotal moment in this process, because now, knowing what I know, I never would have gone there. I never ever would have put myself into functional medicine ever.
And what did they give you with the functional medicine?
Supplements that cost about £500-600, and herbs, and like crazy protocols, and like stuff. Basically, honestly, with all due respect, like stuff for rich people. Because you can afford to just take all your time off work and do coffee enemas every day, and do your saunas, and do this, and take your Epsom salt baths and whatever. I've got a job. Like, I'm not. I've got rent to pay. I've got bills to pay. Like, I'm not. I can't do this.
I can't dedicate my life to enemas.
So it was, and also I felt even worse at this point. I said to the guy, he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel like I'm going to drop dead. I really just feel like I'm going to die. I've never felt like this before. I've been ill before, but I've never felt like this. And so I did loads of research, and I went to a hospital in Mexico. I had to raise loads of money. And I got accepted into this hospital in Mexico that basically, in Mexico, they really integrate everything. So it's so holistic there. They are very respectful of the fact that like Western medicine is one thing. There's one education, there's one route. And so they combine Western medicine with loads of holistic and integrative therapies, including like, frequencies and sound waves and hyperbaric oxygen chambers and loads of other experimental kind of treatments. But also you see a trauma therapist and you do all of that.
So is it like you live there?
Yeah, you live there.
So is it like a wellness center?
No, it's a hospital.
Or it's a hospital. So you're literally...
You live in a hospital.
You live in the hospital. So almost
there's people there with cancer, with Lyme disease, with diabetes, that kind of thing. The setup of the hospital is not obviously like Guy's and St Thomas's or anything. It's it looks beautiful, but there's a ward. So the rooms kind of look a bit like hotel rooms, but then there's a ward. You go down to the ward every single day. You have all of your medications and whatever kind of treatment you're on. But if you get really sick, you stay on the ward. So I was on the ward a few times because during the treatment process, I couldn't walk. I started having seizures. I got worse. And when I got there, they found out that I had issues with my nervous system, my endocrine system, and my immune system. And because I had issues with my immune system, I had infections that my body wasn't fighting. And I was just really sick. I was really, really sick. Sicker than, you know, oh, you've got this, you know, this toxin or this thing. It's like, this hospital kind of gave me a bit of a clearer answer as to what wasn't really working. But at the same time, the treatment protocol they put me on was just more trauma. And more stress.
So you're just literally going
perpetuated
round in circles.
Vicious cycle.
Round in circles.
Yeah. So it was very eye-opening, but again, would I do it again? No.
Absolutely
it was,
not.
and it cost like 30 grand. So it was a lot of money.
Wow. And how did you like raise the money for that? Was it like
GoFundMe?
GoFundMe?
Yeah, no, we did a whole campaign.
So
like,
you told people, this is what I have. I really want to go to this wellness clinic hospital in Mexico.
I mean, not even. It was basically, I spoke to my best friend and I said to her, you know, I've seen this functional medicine doctor. He's given me this mad protocol. I feel like I'm going to drop dead. I don't know what to do. I haven't got enough money for this. Like, and I'm really sick, and this is what they think I've been poisoned, basically. That's what they thought, by black mold, and then they thought I had Lyme disease. So she did the GoFundMe.
Oh, wow.
And because I worked in the music industry, it went round and round and round, and there was a lot of really helpful people that posted it on big platforms.
That's
and
amazing.
Yeah, I was really, really grateful.
Amazing.
Yeah, so grateful, honestly. So we raised the money, we raised what we needed. Went out there, and then had this treatment, but it was just so intense. And like, I think the thing, like, if we think illness, a lot of the time people think like the flu or something. So it's like, oh, you just kind of, you know, take your lemon and ginger or take your paracetamol and be in bed and watch TV and all that kind of stuff. No, I was having like my blood taken out, oxygenated, and then putting it back into me. And like, I was put to sleep for like a period of like 10 to 12 hours. So you're basically kind of in an induced coma in that aspect, and then they basically heat your body temperature up to 109 degrees, and they keep you there to kind of initiate a temperature, because your body's not creating a temperature to fight infections as it should, because your immune system's not working. So if, as a healthy person, if you've got bacteria or viruses, you'll get a temperature because your body's killing that pathogen. Mine wasn't. So they had to initiate these temperatures. It's a really intense procedure, like really, you know, big on the body, general anesthetic. You're obviously asleep for a period of time, and it's just a lot of stress on you, on the body. It's a lot of treatment, and I just don't think that I was even mentally prepared for any of it, at all. I think I was a bit naive. Like, I was like, oh, I've been in the hospital before.
Yeah, I can.
You know, I've done this before. It's fine. And no, this was a different kind of level. So. Yeah.
So you stayed there for how long?
I was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, I was only meant to be there for a week and a half, but I had to stay there longer. And then got discharged, and then I went to LA because the hospital was just under Tijuana. So you're just over the border. So they drive you back up over the border because there's so many Americans that go there. American healthcare is obviously completely different to ours.
Skip down to Mexico.
Yeah, because it's cheaper, actually. So these people have been told, like, oh, you've got cancer and you're on stage 4 liver cancer. Yeah. You're going to have to be like under chemo and radiation, but also we don't think we can actually help you, and it's going to cost you like 200 grand. Yeah. Like, that's really kind of how it works over there. So they would come down to Mexico because it was cheaper. And they would get much more experimental treatments. Like, the FDA haven't had to approve stuff, and they had a really good kind of success rate, and of not necessarily always, you know, saving people or whatever you want, curing people, whatever you want to say, but definitely extended periods of life, like where they were told 6 months, they then get 3 years, you know, that kind of thing. So stayed over there, and then stayed in Mexico to recover because I knew Mexico well, but not that side. I've been going to the southeast side for a long time. You were
allowed to go out when you were like in the hospital?
No.
You weren't allowed at
all?
No. It was after the 3 week period that you started exploring.
When you're admitted, you're admitted. Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't even exploring, it was recovering. Like, there was no exploration. I was ill. Like, it wasn't... oh, this is now a holiday. No. I was very ill. Like it was so crazy as well, because you have a treatment protocol to follow when you leave.
As well, yeah.
So I was still on treatment for a year after I left. Like there was they said to me in the hospital, they were like, you need to get it into your head. This is a marathon. You're trying to sprint it, and it's a marathon. And because when I was there, I couldn't walk, and my legs had problems with my legs and my joints and stuff. It was just like a whole thing that I was so like, I can't believe this is happening that I almost like rejected it. I was like, no, not me. It couldn't be me. No way.
I don't get sick. No.
Yeah. Not even that I couldn't get sick. It wasn't that. It was the nature of what was happening, the severity. When you have gone from being somebody that plays football like athletically at a very, very high level. Like I was a footballer when I was a kid. I played for Tottenham. I played for my county. I was meant to have England trials. Like I was very, very high level. To then not be able to walk, that's crazy to me, because all my strength is in my legs. So just on a mental level, having to come to terms with some days I can't walk. My legs are literally like, it's like wearing lead boots, where my legs would swell to such a degree I couldn't lift them up. So anyway, it was a whole ordeal. So I stayed in Mexico for probably like 4 months after to recover. So in total I was there for like 6 months. Wow. Came back, and then just wasn't getting any better. Like nothing was really improving. We're still doing these treatment protocols. Started working with someone else who gave me an even more intense treatment protocol, got even sicker. Like it just went on and on and on. And I, at that point, was like, I don't want to live. I'm done. Like I actually I can't, I'm going to tap out because I can't do this anymore. And that was really dark. But I just didn't know what else to do, because I felt like I tried everything. At that point I thought I tried everything. I hadn't, obviously, but I thought I had. So ended up meeting this woman who changed my perception of health a lot, because she was the first person that kind of spoke to me about like the energetics. So she was a homeopath, and her whole thing was getting people into the understanding of like the energetics, and she was really well versed in things like Chinese medicine and energy medicine. So once I kind of sat with her for a while, and I used to go see her every single week, and it was really helpful talking to her, because she validated a lot of the research that I had done and like what I was thinking. And she was just like, you just start seeing your body as like an electrical circuit, and that your circuit at the moment is the wires are not working. So how do you rewire yourself? And I was like, all right, cool. And so with the kind of homeopathy stuff and like even just herbs and whatever, I was still doing all of that stuff, but I just kind of got rid of everything else that I've been told to do. Because I was doing like coffee enemas every day. I was doing, like infrared sauna. I bought this like little pop-up tent for like £100 and was sitting in this sauna for like 2 hours every day. That's what I mean. It's like this treatment was, it was so intense, and it was also like completely, how could I work? I couldn't do anything.
Over your life,
I couldn't do anything.
All I want to do is get better. That's all I want to do. My money's going into it. My time's going into it.
Yeah. We're like a guinea pig. Yeah. That's it. It's like trial and error, like literally trial and error. And I think that's the most frustrating part. It's just throwing and seeing what sticks. And then, that's working. That's definitely not working. That maybe is that working? Try it a bit longer. That was the process. There was no method to any of this. Yeah. So that was kind of like that whole period. And then, in 2020, my best friend, same one that raised money.
I like her.
Yeah, me too. I like she's a good. She's one of the best people ever. She gave me a flat. She moved to the US, and so she gave me a flat, and she was like, "You can recover here." And then the pandemic hit. Ooh. So it was really interesting, because at the time I was like, "Cool, whatever. Like I've just done this. Like I've done illness. I've done everything." Yeah. Nothing can kind of phase me with this. Yeah. And I'm not scared of it either, because at this point also, I don't trust the government. I don't trust doctors. I don't trust any of it. Yeah. So I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. So I did. And then, but I'm now again, upon reflection, very aware of the fact that during that time, I should have had a physio. I should have had a therapist. I should have had all these things that I wasn't given. Yeah. So I feel like all the work I was doing on myself, creative movement is medicine, but I probably should have had more support, and I didn't have hold any. You up in
all the work that you're actually doing.
I didn't have any. But this is the point then that led me to the research into the nervous system and trauma. So I dove into understanding how stress and trauma affect the body, because when I was in hospital I read a book, and the book is called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers is incredible, because what they basically base this whole theory on is, in the wild, animals do not get sick like we do. They just don't. They don't get cancer. They don't get autoimmune diseases. They definitely don't get PTSD. So why is it a human thing?
Yeah.
And they discovered that it's because animals are able to literally shake off stress and trauma.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not talking about your dog that you feed XYZ food to and whatever, that like they do get ill.
Yeah.
This is wild animals.
Yeah.
But even if you look at your dog, like your dog will shake when it's stressed, and it will shake to get off the stress. So this whole book is kind of like this really deep dive into the science behind all of that kind of body of work. Yeah. And I just was like, oh, this is really, really interesting. And that kind of was planting the seeds for me for then a year later to go really deep into that whole world. And that's when I found, Gabor Mate, and I found The Body Keeps a Score, and I just started to find like all these books that are all about Peter Levine, for example, like the godfather of all of this work, really, of the somatic work, and just starting to understand how the body holds on to everything. So one day I woke up and I was in like a lot of pain, and I was like really not feeling good at all, but I got this voice, and I can now say it was, in my opinion, it was God. It was the voice of God. It was like, you need to start moving. You've got to move. And I was like, no, I can't move. I'm so tired. I'm in so much pain. It was like, get up and start to move. And obviously when we think of exercise, and I was in this mindset, you think gym, you think HIIT, you think even, jogging and running and swimming. Stressful, and it's high intensity. And I was like, I can't. And then I just realized, I was like, well, what movement can you do in your house? Because it's the pandemic. Nothing's open anyway. Yeah. Apart from going for a walk, what else can you do? So I started to dance, and I started to dance to one song a day, and just started to really like listen to tunes that took me back to like my raving days and my happy places. And so it went from one song a day to get myself moving, and then it upped to, like I started listening to more tunes, and then to sets, and then it was like, oh, okay, cool, this is actually working. Like I actually feel so much better in myself. And so I started to do a lot of research into music and dance and movement in general, and the nervous system, and like different things that kind of were out there, not in regards to fitness and endorphins as we currently have, as a standard, but actually about the nervous system in particular. And then that took me into understanding that like within a lot of indigenous and tribal communities, this is normal. Like dancing and banging drums and like literally shaking it out is completely normal. So our version of that, in my opinion, is raving, but it's obviously plastered with hedonism. So you remove the hedonism and you take it back to the origin, which is just like expression and movement and being able to release. And that's where I created Movement is Medicine. So I went and moved back to Mexico end of 2020 to kind of recover from like PTSD at this point. Like that was really the residue. It was like physical stuff had kind of sorted itself out, but the residue was PTSD, like flashbacks, like really bad flashbacks, anxiety through the roof. I would like literally like, was it like collapse.
The flashbacks that you were going to get ill again, or
no? That's more like health anxiety. I'm talking like flashbacks of me being like held down and things being put into me, and like actual,
it's all happening again.
Yeah. Well, I read this thing like, so if medical trauma can be similar in essence to people who have experienced torture, because you don't realize necessarily that this is for your own good, especially if it turns out wrong. So this is kind of what ended up happening to me. And like when I read this article, I was like, wow, because when people are obviously in that space of like abuse, you're being pinned down. And that's what I was pinned down numerous times by doctors to like put things into me because I was screaming and whatever. And it's like, it's a very intense form of trauma physically. So I would have flashbacks to that kind of stuff, and it was very, very, very intense and severe. But the health anxiety on top of that, like terrified I'm gonna get, I'm not gonna lie, like I still do have stuff trouble with
time
that.
to time,
yeah. So
wow.
moved back to Mexico to kind of really recover from this whole ordeal. And then that's where I started studying tribes and indigenous communities and cultures. And I studied hard like when I was there, but I wasn't interested in the science when I was there. Science was always the science and there was always more, but this time it was like, let me go back to the roots, and especially within like Mexican traditions. So I spent a lot of time with different people out there from different lineages like Mayan, Inca, and just started to learn a lot about that kind of life, that kind of culture, that kind of lifestyle. And especially though, the drum, the music, the dance, the movement is so ingrained into culture there. It's so normal. And then I looked at indigenous communities in the Amazon, sat with a couple of tribes from the Amazon, learned what I needed to learn there. I also then didn't like sit with or meet, but looked at Native Americans, Africa, and even the Caribbean. So like looked at these kind of indigenous spaces, Aboriginals as well. But it exists in every culture, that we don't even have to go that far back. It's like you look at even anywhere in Northern Africa, the Middle East, even Irish. I'm Irish. Like you look at like the lineage there, it's always about music and movement in some capacity. The music is just probably slightly different depending on where you are. So that was what really got my attention and what I found like fascinating, because I was like, oh my gosh, like we've kind of just evolved into this like space and time where like our use of music and dance has just been a bit tainted by drugs and alcohol.
It has to have that.
And actually, what are we doing? Because actually we don't have to, when somebody says, oh, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm not a drinker, or whatever. Why not? It's like, because I've said so.
I don't
want to.
I don't need it.
And that's where we're at as a society, and I think that's a problem. So when you look at these kind of cultures, and you look at, and I'm not saying that these cultures have got all the answers or whatever, but it's like you look at these cultures that have just got that relationship. That's the key element. It's the mindset and the relationship with how to utilize music and dance as a healing modality and not as an escape. That's the difference.
So would you say people are more using like the drugs and the alcohol as like the star of the show, and music is just the background?
Definitely. Like, I think that there's obviously a lot of people out there that love music so much, and they only go to specific things for the music. But there are also a lot of people that don't. They go out specifically to go out.
Get smashed.
And I was never that person. Like when I went to uni, there was a place called Vodka Revs. Says it all
on the
says
tin.
it all. Like Vodka Revs, that was a place that everyone went to, and I was just like, I went there a couple of times. I was like, this is just not my thing. It'd be like going to like Oceana or that kind of vibe. It's just not my thing. Like, you're here specifically to drink cheap alcohol, to get smashed, to probably go home with someone. Like, it's just not my thing. Like, I've been going out since I was like, 16 probably, to go and see a DJ. Like, that was why we went. So we would maybe drink when we were there or whatever, but it wasn't the purpose. It wasn't the purpose. So even when I got a bit older, I went to raves sober all the time. That was never a thing for me. I was also poor. I was like £20 for a ticket to see a headline DJ.
Where's the money for the drink?
That's it. Yeah, that's the money. That's it. So I would like save up. I used to be a waitress in Premier Inn when I was at uni. So I'd save up all my tips, and that would be my like
ticket money.
Yeah, my ticket money and also my petrol money.
Wow.
So that's how I did it for a long time. So I think that like where I got older and I started to meet people, and I'm like, oh, you don't go out like me. Like you don't go out in the way that I go out. Like, you're going out to get off your nut. And then I started to realise and understand, obviously as a grown woman now, not as like a little tweenie, that there is a massive difference between those two things. And it's about therefore harbouring a new culture towards the raving community that is giving them the same music, same feelings, same experiences, but without the hedonism aspect attached. And we also don't have to separate those two things either, as in like the culture itself can be so utilised with the same DJs, the same sounds in the same nightclubs, but just in a different format, in a different way, that the premise is actually fitness, and health. And that's the key for me, is like really pushing forward this narrative that it's actually about fitness and health and well-being, not let's go out and get off on that.
Yeah. And even like going to the gym and stuff like that, you know, I think that can be the main star of the show instead of like the music itself being the star of the show. Like,
definitely.
Music in itself can be the healer, the star of the show, that sort of thing. So tell us how you started Movement is Medicine as a business. Like, how did you think, you know what, I'm actually going to turn this into something?
Yes.
And like, why did you call it Movement is Medicine?
Okay, so when I was in Mexico, I came up with the idea long before I started as a business. This is the thing. And
after The Voice.
After The Voice, totally. That was like definitely like the seeds planted as to like how important this is and how special it is. So when I was in Mexico, I did like a 30-day challenge on Instagram. 30 days, every day, different song. I curated a playlist to get people into the habit of like dancing to one song a day. I then obviously upload it and things started to kind of go from there about movement is medicine as a concept. But then I obviously had to try the concept and it changed so many times. The method now compared to what it was at the start, totally different. But another one of my best friends, she also came out to Mexico and she said to me, when I was talking to her about all of this, she was like, you should teach this. And I was like, but I'm not teaching choreography, so how would it, I don't understand. And it would also be the same thing every time. So that's not something that people are going to want to do. They want something different. And she was like, no, teach it. So she kind of planted the seeds for me to just start. Because this is the thing with a lot of people. So many people will have an idea. They'll never start it. It's just an idea.
I thought of that. I thought of that.
It will always just be an idea in their heads. And so I've never been like that. I'm like, execute. I'm the opposite. I'm like, execute it. If it doesn't work, keep it moving. So, so I started teaching it and I used to do it once a month and used to do it as this like, just kind of dance class or whatever. But started it off as something that was probably a lot more spiritual, probably is the right word. And then I was like, all right, cool. But I want this to reach a mass audience. So no, I don't want it to be a spiritual thing in essence. And that's how we kind of sell it and whatever. I don't
just the woo-woo people.
I don't want it to be that. Because I know how much this can help so many people. So I need to make sure that we don't box ourselves into a category of like woo-woo wellness and it's just like, oh, trust me, it works. It's like, no, I'm going to science it up to the max. And obviously, because I've done all the research, I've done so much research. I've done like a PhD's worth of research to do this. This is not, oh, I just read this article. Like I've done years now, up until now, I've done probably 6 years worth of research for this. And it continues. There's no stopping. The research is all, I'm constantly researching. So I came back from Mexico at the end of 2021. So I've been there for a year. And at the start of 2022, January, I was like, I'm going to stop every other bit of work that I've been doing, which in the prep for this, I was working with people one-to-one as like a teacher, coaching people basically about the mind and the body, holistic health. I saw all types of people. I saw people with trauma. I saw people with physical health things. And I just gave them these tools. But music, the movement and connecting to the body was like a huge part of it. So they were kind of, I guess, obviously not necessarily consciously, but at the time I was like, my thought process around all these different things that I know and the trainings I've had and the life experiences, it works because all these people are coming and doing this work with me one-to-one. I now need to apply this to like a much bigger concept. So stopped doing all of that and then launched Movement is Medicine as an actual like fully functioning business. But again, I had to get people on board. So I started it and it was at the start, just donations. So just donations, just to get people through the door. In fact, I don't even think it was donations. I think it was just like free.
Just come.
I just did it for free. For probably like 3 months. And then somebody messaged me on Instagram and was like, you should do donations at least. Like use a lot of your time. But I was teaching like 5 times a week, just this.
Was it on Zoom or
Zoom?
Like,
Yeah, because it was like, I needed proof of concept.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So got kind of proof of concept sorted. then started to get press because more people, it was just organic. There was no like, it was just all very organic. And then I realized that I don't have the right pieces of paper to make this a certy, like this works. Even though I've got all the details and all the data and all the science-based stuff that I needed, I don't have the neuroscientist backing piece of paper because I'm not a neuroscientist. So I said to my assistant at the time, we need a neuroscientist to come and back us. And I swear down, this is how you know it's God's work. 10 minutes later, I got an email from somebody who had been doing the method for 6 months, who was a neuroscientist.
Who was in your group? Yeah. Actually doing the work?
Yeah, she's been doing it every week for 6 months.
And she was coming to you?
Yeah.
But you needed her?
Yeah. Yeah. So she basically had sent us, I'd asked for people in the medical or just health community in general, people with degrees. I'd ask people for letters of recommendation so that we could have them on file, so that anything that we did moving forward, it would be teachers, doctors, nurses, therapists would be like, this is fine. Like, this is a good thing. This is not some kind of whack job. Like, I've got the cure. Like, do you know what I mean? So anyway, she'd been one of those people that had given us her letter of recommendation. Oh, wow. So, yeah, she emailed the letter of recommendation. At the bottom of her signature, it was like, the neuroscientist. And I was like, as if. I've got it. Yeah. So I emailed her and was like, would you be open to having a conversation about da-da-da? She was like, I'll write up your whole methods. She was like, I'll write up exactly what it does from the neuroscience. I back you. I'm like your biggest supporter. Amazing. I love what you do. Yeah. Done. So that's how that relationship kind of formed. And ever since then, it's been so great because it's just been able to go from like strength to strength. And then that's when the TED Talk happened. And then after that, you know, loads.
How did that happen? Did they like look for you online and found you and invited you? Or?
So a friend of mine gave me, recommended me to them. And then I went through the application process, but it was just like, cool. Nice. Quite simple. Yeah. And then, got on this morning. Yeah. So again, that was like completely organic. Like I met somebody that I knew from ages ago and she was just like, oh yeah, here you go. So everything that we've been able to do so far has just been completely word of mouth, organic. Yeah. There's been no kind of, money behind any of it. Yeah. It's just literally just been me and a very small team pushing it forward and just making sure that people know what we do and who we are. And we've been fortunate enough that people love it and it works, most importantly. And that's the thing now, we've got enough kind of testimonial based evidence. We have just started doing this thing called the Warwick Edinburgh form. So the Warwick Edinburgh form is just like a generalised wellbeing form. It's used in like doctor surgeries with therapists. It's used in hospitals to see how people improve once they've done interventions. Okay. So we use that now with certain people to see like how they can go from 0 to 100, for example. Well, actually it's 0 to 10 before and after a session. And it's always an improvement. There's always an improvement, and it's always like, it always helps people to just release that stress that they're holding on to, no matter what it is. Yeah. We're not claiming to cure anything. Yeah. We're not claiming that we're going to, reverse anything. We're not doing any of that. The one thing that is universal across the board for every single person is stress. Yeah. And the other thing that's universal is music. So that's what we do. We work with music as a universal component to release stress, which is also universal because it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to go into a stress response at some point. And that's totally fine. Yeah. You just have to learn what and how your body responds to stress. And then some people are going to need a bit more reprogramming and rewiring because of what they've been through. Yeah. It's kind of that simple.
So what kind of illnesses or ailments have come to movement as medicine? Like, have people sort of said testimonials and things like that they've recovered from and started to feel better from 0 to 100?
Yeah, I mean, you name it, we've kind of seen it really. It's like everything from the cancer bracket to the autoimmune bracket to the mental health bracket, anxiety, depression, super simple. But like people come with that all the time, PTSD. One of the most interesting ones though is that, because we never know also, by the way, we have no idea, because the movement itself, we don't actually have to ask people what their injuries are, because obviously at the start of most fitness classes, people go, tell me what your injuries are, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We don't actually have to do that. And the reason we don't have to do that is because the first bit of the method, which is the nervous system kind of regulation part and working with the body to such a degree that that's going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, where we feel, you know, warm and connected and present. That's all seated. And that bit of the movement is so little. It's little movements. That's what makes people feel really great and connected, and also usually the bit that makes people release and cry, because they start to realize where they're holding on to certain emotions and certain feelings, and then they let those feelings go through the movement and the rhythm of the music. But the second half, the kind of more energetic part and the cardio part, it's your own pace. There's no rule. Like you can just literally sit there if you want and just kind of shake your hands and just move a little bit with tapping your feet. There's no rules in regards to how you want to move. But once you just get out of your head and let your body kind of do its thing, you'll be fine. But I mean, we've taught this now to, you know, one of my instructors taught it in a stroke unit.
Wow.
So in a stroke unit with recovering, people that are recovering from strokes. And the feedback was phenomenal, because obviously stroke inhibits movement in a big way for some people more than others, you know. But movement is the thing that rewires the brain. We have to move to create new neural pathways. And so there's obviously the biggest nuance that we get is like, can people do it if they're in a wheelchair? I think that there's going to be, of course, a few people that we meet and we're probably like, it's probably not going to work for you necessarily, because if you're paralyzed from the neck down, it's probably not going to work for you, and that it is what it is. But majority of conditions, totally fine. Pregnancy, I get asked this all the time, can I come if I'm pregnant? 100%. Connect to your body, learn how to connect to your body, so even during labor you understand how to kind of loosen things up and move the hips to get things moving.
Can you show us a bit of that, the moving the hips? Would now be a good time to do that? Yeah, you think so? Are we sitting, are we standing?
We can sit.
Oh, we can sit. Okay.
Yeah, we can sit.
I can participate in this. Let me just to release some of this trauma and stuff like that. So we're going to get back into it, and we're going to do some of that hip energy work. Yeah. So we'll take it from where I was like, can we do some of that? Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So show us, like, what do we do when we're sort of getting into that space, like before we start moving? How do we?
So I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to just start to tap your hands on your knees to the rhythm, and also tap your feet on the floor. And just notice as you're tapping any kind of sensations that you can feel, in particular in your feet and also in your knees where your fingers are touching. Tap, tap, tap. And just really focus on the rhythm of the music. Tap, 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 tap. And I want you to just start to move, even just from your hips as you're doing this, as you're tapping. Start to move from your hips. So these small little movements that your hips are making, it might seem like nothing, but your hips are moving to the music. And basically we've got these two muscles in the lower back. They're called the psoas muscles. And these muscles have to move. They're really, really important in regards to movement, because they connect your torso to your legs. They're basically what help you move in regards to walking. And these muscles go through your hips, and they can get really, really tight.
Okay.
And so when they're really tight, it can give you all sorts of different issues like back pain, etc. But also it can affect your nervous system. So that's why we always work with this muscle in particular as we're tuning into the body, and we're tuning into the rhythm of how your body would like to move to the music, because there are no rules. It's just your body moving to the music. So you're coming into something of what we call tap and move, tap and move, tap and move, tap and move. And I want you to just become really aware as you're tapping on your knees. Where else are you feeling any sensation right now in your body?
I'd say my arms.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Where in your arms?
Like the back of my arms.
Okay, cool. Yeah. What kind of sensation is it?
They just feel almost highlighted.
Yeah. Highlighted is a great word. And do you like the sensation? Is it comfortable? Yeah. Okay, cool. Then the one thing that you can take from that is to show you and remind you that everything is completely interconnected. Every single part of your body is interconnected. You're sending these electrical impulses as you're tapping on your knees all the way up your body and back down again. And it's just like you're literally an electrical circuit. And this is what helps to formulate that electrical circuit properly. Open your eyes. How you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, actually. Yeah, I think I could do with a little party right now. Definitely.
Yeah, so that's just like a little kind of intro as to like how we conduct this methodology. Yeah. But it's all based around tapping and moving with certain parts of your body. Obviously, we're slightly constricted in these chairs. So what we do is we have people sat on the floor so that your movement is not constricted. So you can really just like move to the music. There's no constricted element to it. And then once we've kind of got through the body from the feet all the way up to the top of the head, which takes about half an hour. Yeah. It's like a slow process to really get people feeling their stuff, you know. Once we've done that, we get everyone to stand up, and then that's where we go into the second part, and that's where we start to really like change the energy. We change the tempo of the music. The music goes right. That's where we start playing like house and drum and bass and really start getting people into just bouncing up and down and finding their rhythm as they skank and rave out.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to get people into the space, because it can be like when you're going to a rave, when you're going to a party, is like, oh, like everyone's watching me, like being self-conscious and that sort of thing. And if you're taking like a good half hour to like stop the ego, it's not about you, or it's not about the self-consciousness of how people are perceiving you, that sort of thing. It's more about just being present.
Exactly.
You know?
That's
letting
the
the body do what it does.
Yeah, that's the key. And that's why it works, because there's other kind of things out there that are like, you know, dance modalities or whatever. But my whole thing with it is the fact that if people are so in their heads, they're not going to be able to let go. It's kind of that simple. Yeah. So that's why they take drugs and they drink alcohol. That's it. There's no complexity to it. Yeah. So if you can get people out of the thinking mind and just into the body, which is always present, you don't care about anyone or anything around you. You don't care about what you look like, because it doesn't matter. So by the time we get to the second half and we get everyone to stand up, no one feels self-conscious. And if you do, you just close your eyes again. Yeah. And you just let your body carry on doing its thing.
Do square one.
Literally, square one, eyes shut. And so the nervous system in itself anyway is, your peripheral nervous system is a motor and sensory system. So that's what the method is kind of like based on, is the fact that your nervous system loves movement first and foremost, but also it's governed by the senses. So if you have ever had any type of trauma therapy, one of the things that therapists will do if you start to feel triggered is they will do the whole sensory awareness exercise, which is think of 5 things you can see, smell, 4 things you can touch, smell, taste, etc. So that's always going to work because it's bringing you back to the present. So with that in mind, why we do what we do in Movement is Medicine, and we do touch and we do sound. We use those 2 senses and we remove sight, so that you start to tune in to the sound only, and then also your own physical touch, so that you remember your body's your anchor, because it's right here, present in the moment. And then also the sound is going to be your kind of other sense that we're heightening, so that you just block out everything around you, and it is just all about yourself, your physical body, how you feel. And then when you open your eyes, as I said, like you just don't really care. Yeah.
So what does it sort of take to like get someone out and decide, yes, I want to do this? Because, you know, when you're in a state of like depression or anxiety or just not feeling good, you've been let down by maybe the doctors, you're lonely, you know, family, no friends, nothing, to actually come and say, you know what, movement is the answer. You know what, I'm feeling depressed right now, let me just have a dance. You know what I mean? It sounds like what, you know?
So luckily for us, there was a study that came out at the start of this year, a huge study. And dance, above all other exercises and interventions, including SSRIs, CBT, and then all other exercises, dance came out on top as the leader for combating depression.
Wow.
The reason that they can't call it a cure is essentially because there are still variables and nuances, and the study was done particularly on women, but the age range was huge. The age range was between 7 and 85. Wow. So dance is at the top. And the thing is, again, with the Western mindset, we're like, tell me why, and I need to know. Listen, every single person in your lineage has used dance at some point to release what they need to release. Like, it's just within us. Yeah. So we can put together all of that kind of scientific basis for it, but we can also look at, that's why I did all this research into like understanding tribes so heavily. This is normal. This is a normal thing. Somebody's not feeling right, bang the drum, light the fire, and pray and chant and pray to God. And let that experience move through them. It's completely normal. So, but just to like break it down even further into like a much more simplistic kind of Western understanding, there was a huge study done last year of over 123,000 people with less variables, basically, that showed that exercise was 1.5 times more effective than CBT or drugs, medication. Yeah. So, you have to move. Like, it just is, you know, we hear people from all the time who are like, oh, I go to the gym and it makes my mental health improve, or I go for a jog or a run, my mental health improves because I'm actually moving and exercising. We're meant to move. Our society is so still and sedentary, and unfortunately the fitness industry has created a monster in the fact that everyone is obsessed in regards to fitness with the looks
of it.
It's all about the look. It's got nothing to do with the look. You will naturally look great if you are moving. You just will. And this is the thing, obviously there's a nuance always, you know, some people have hormone things and whatever, and medications that make them have water weight and inflammation. Totally understandable. But for the general population, if you are moving and you are taking that seriously and you're moving every day, not once a week, every day, even just 20 minutes, you know, 30 minutes of something that's going to raise your heart rate, you are going to be fit and healthy and look well for it. And then of course, if you have more specific wants and needs, you can then go and do those after. Like, maybe you do want to, like, you know, get abs or build a bum or whatever it is, you can go and do that specifically. But the point of movement, it's not about the way you look. It's just not. When I'm moving the most, like, I'm actually terrible in the winter. I can't lie. Like, you know, I obviously work in this whole realm, but I don't work in fitness for the look at all. It doesn't it's just never bothered me. But basically in the winter, I hibernate. Like, I'm a proper hibernator. I just don't go out my house. So I move less and I do my dancing and whatever. But in the summer, when I'm dancing and I'm also out walking, I'm riding a bike, I'm going swimming, I'm just doing more active, natural things, I will naturally get abs. Like, very easily within like the space of like 2-3 weeks of doing all it without trying, without doing anything. And I'm not trying to get a six pack, but I will get abs. My abs will show. At the moment, I'm carrying a little bit of extra weight because it's been the winter, and now I'm ready to move a bit more. I've actually just bought one of those treadmills, but for the walk-in treadmill, because my schedule, I am on my laptop. I'm doing meetings and assessments and that kind of thing all day, pretty much Monday to Friday. It's like my day is just filled up with meetings. I'm not moving enough. I have to move, and I don't like exercising in the gym at night because I like to wind down. I don't like to get my my levels first kind of through the roof. No, I love exercising first thing in the morning. That's the thing. So because I wasn't reaching what I needed to reach, I've just bought myself this little walking treadmill so that I can add that on, and like throughout the day when I'm doing the meetings, I can just be on the treadmill. And so I'm constantly able to move. And this is the thing with the kind of world that we've built. It's so problematic because it is based upon insecurity. It's based upon, I don't feel good enough, I don't look right, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm whatever. And it's just like, we've overcomplicated it entirely, because it should just be about what you feel like. And for most people, when they start moving, every single person I know that goes and does a fitness class or goes to the gym will go, I didn't want to go, but I did it, and I came out and I felt amazing.
Yeah.
Always. There's never anyone that comes out and they're like, I hated it. I didn't like it. I feel terrible.
I'm so glad I went.
Always. So that's the thing in regards to just doing something like this. If you are that person that you're a bit of a hermit, or you don't want to leave the house, or whatever you've got going on, maybe you have got an illness that you're dealing with and you are depressed, or whatever it is, you can put some music on in your house and dance. There is no restriction on that. There is no skill. There's nothing you need. You just need the music and the speaker.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's free.
Everyone has that at this point. Like, you have access to technology, you know, unless you're living obviously in the jungle, like even then they have phones. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you're fine. So I think that, just getting people into this habit of like, I don't feel great. I need to move. That needs to be a new mindset, and that's obviously why I even called it Movement is Medicine in the first place. It's very easy for people to remember, and it does what it says on the tin. So do it.
Movement is medicine. So how did you come up with the name, like Emma the Alchemist? How about that?
Oh, so have you read The Alchemist, the book?
I have, years ago.
So my form tutor, now I'm a woman and I'm a grown woman. Like, I reflected on this guy so much, because he was like probably one of my greatest spiritual teachers, actually. Like, he made us read The Alchemist when we was in year 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite an advanced book, isn't it?
Yeah. He was very on it, and like obviously shared whatever he wanted. He was Persian, and he shared whatever he wanted to share with us in regards to himself and his life and whatever. But yeah, he was definitely a bit of a hippie at heart, and he was always at like different festivals and just gathering information. He even did a sabbatical one year and lived in Iran for a year. And he was just super like on teaching us, not just teaching, you know, he was teaching us about life and the world. So I think those
are the best teachers, aren't they?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, obviously to this day, I still consider him like such a huge pivotal person in my life, like in my growth of being a person. So he made us read The Alchemist when we was 11, 12 years old. So it became like a real kind of favorite book from then. And I've read it probably another, 20 times since then. I read it at different parts of my life. It's one of those books that I just feel that you can get a different message every time you read it, depending on where you're at. And a different part is going to resonate more depending on where you're at.
So you give it meaning almost.
Yeah. I think that's why it's such a good book, and why obviously it's one of probably the most popular books in the world, actually, when it comes to spiritual stories, because that's what it is. It's because, you can take something different every single time you read it, wherever you're at in your life. And that's definitely what I took from it. And alchemy essentially obviously is like transmutation of you know, good into bad into dark, whatever, light into dark, etc. So
which you have done with your experience, because had it not been for this experience,
no, it wouldn't have birthed this. That's the thing. And it's so cliche, or it's like, oh, would you change it?
It really is, but it's not.
It's not. It's that fact. It's like anyone that's been through like some kind of mad suffering, and extreme suffering, because mine was definitely very on the extreme side. It's the cliche. It's like, would you change it? Probably not. No. I think that obviously I would dial down the intensity. For sure. I would like to have suffered less physical pain. But in terms of the actual journey of it all, no, because it's given me my purpose.
Absolutely.
I've been able to help thousands of people, and it's only growing. And you know, one of the biggest things for me is accessibility. Hugely important. I, you know, I'm not coming from poverty, but I'm also not coming from money. I'm kind of in that like lower middle class bracket where we weren't poor. I had food on the table. I was very blessed in so many aspects, but we weren't rich. We weren't rich at all. And I was also never in the understanding that dance was a therapy. You know, you can go and train in dance psychotherapy or music therapy and all these things.
Art therapy,
all these things, right? That is not my world. It's not, like, I was never offered any of that. I didn't even know it was a thing. And I think that it's still very centered towards a certain type of demographic. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think that's such a problem because it's like, right, well, the only ones that can afford it can, you know, get X, Y, Z, and there's only so much funding for this and that and blah, blah. My whole thing with Movement is Medicine is let's just make it as accessible as possible. So if you want to come and learn like the deeper elements of the methodology, come and do the training, come and learn to be an instructor, etc. But like, let's also make this really simple for people. Yeah. The music and the dance is going to help your health and well-being. It's kind of that simple. And here's some reasons as to why. Everything that we do is education based. Yeah. So we're teaching people the methodology they can use in their daily life, but we also tell them why they're doing it. Why are they touching certain points? Why does this work? What does it do? Yeah. And therefore we're not gatekeeping. Yeah. Because that's the biggest thing is like gatekeepers left, right and center.
Now we found this, it's ours now.
Totally. And I just think that's wrong. And so, accessibility is like a huge thing. And I think that like with the alchemy component to it, like I couldn't sit with integrity and say that I've done what I've wanted to do without having those values like cemented from when I was going through my health journey. Because my health journey, I basically looked at everything that happened to me and I was like, right, how can I make this like work for as many people as possible so this doesn't happen to someone else and this doesn't happen again.
Well, and that's better help themselves.
That's what I mean. You know. And they're empowered. They're not victimized. And that's a huge part for me. And that's where the alchemy side comes in for sure.
And obviously you can't be everywhere at every time. So you also teach this for people that actually want to be instructors of Movement is Medicine as well. And I think you're having training dates on the 8th of May. Yes. Actually, this year, 2024. Yes. Aren't you? And you periodically do training dates to obviously make more instructors all over the world. So your next one is going to be May the 8th.
So May the 8th, that's the next one. I've just finished one now. We're just doing the assessments. So by like the end of May we'll have like another 25 instructors. I've got another I think 25 or 30 people doing the May one. After that I'm going to be doing another one in September. But we're in a position right now where we're about to scale. So when we scale, we're going to be able to do it as an on-demand training course so that anyone can do it, any time zone, anywhere, because that's obviously a big restriction. Even though I'm doing the training, I still am one person and I've only got a schedule that can fit to X, Y, and Z. So one of our biggest things is people go, I really want to do this, but I can't because of the time zone or I'm away those dates or whatever it is. So for me, how do we make this just completely accessible to anyone, anywhere? It's an on-demand course. So that's what we're going to be doing as soon as we've got that kind of next bit of investment that comes through. And then, we'll be able to structure it so the accessibility completely changes to an on-demand model.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And you also, most of your classes are like online, but you do have once a month where you have an in-person event. And I think your next one is coming on the 27th of April. So that's this month, the 27th of April, 2024.
Yes, exactly. So at the end of each month, we have a residency in a club in Hackney, number 90. And we take over the club in the day, 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. With a DJ, with a live sax player, and we do the method live and in person, and everyone leaves feeling amazing. So
yeah, that sounds good. So if you're in London, if you're in Hackney on the 27th of April, make sure you stop by to see Emma with Movement is Medicine. But if not, of course, it's available online. You can check out the website, Movement is Medicine. Is it .co.uk?
Just .uk.
.uk. Movementismedicine.uk. You can follow Emma on Instagram as well at Emma the Alchemist as well. Are you on TikTok?
No, Movement is Medicine is. So movementismedicine.uk. We're mainly just on Instagram at the moment.
So Movement is Medicine on Instagram and movementismedicine.uk is the website. So grab your tickets now if you want to see Emma the Alchemist at her next event, or you want to become a training instructor with her. Head over to the website. Thank you so much for watching or listening.